Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Yamuna Tira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Diraye Nashre Prayeshu Padreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1 Chapter 2 Text 25 Bhejire Maniyotagre Bhagavantam Matokshajam Sattvam Vishuddham Kshemaya Kalpante Yenutan Iha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai.
Right.
Translation. Previously, all the great sages rendered service unto the personality of Godhead due to his existence above the three modes of material nature. They worshipped him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. Purport. The purpose of performing religion is neither to profit by material gain, nor to get the simple knowledge of discerning matter from spirit. The ultimate aim of religious performances is to release one from material bondage and regain the life of freedom in the transcendental world, where the personality of Godhead is the supreme person. Laws of religion, therefore, are directly enacted by the personality of Godhead, and except for the Mahajanas or the authorized agents of the Lord, no one knows the purpose of religion. There are 12 particular agents of the Lord who know the purpose of religion, and all of them render transcendental service unto him. Persons who desire their own good may follow these Mahajanas and thus attain the supreme benefits. Jai. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hey, the closest window. So we've been hearing about how the mode of goodness is best. You know, um, there was that beautiful, elaborate analogy about firewood is like ignorance, the smoke is like passion, and the fire itself is like goodness. Okay, the Lord is himself transcendental to the modes of nature. He's above them. So this is principle of worshiping the creator and not the creation. And this is this verse is like an appeal to authority. It's like, okay, well, why should you worship Vishnu or Krishna? Well, because the great souls have done that. They've always done that. And what do they get? What was their benefit? Right? Like if you want to see if something works, you see if someone else has done it. What benefit did they get? You want to learn karate, and everyone who goes to a certain teacher just comes back crippled and unable to do anything. You may think twice about going and giving them your money and time. But if they become masters in their craft, then that's very good. So they worship him to become free from material conditions and thus derive the ultimate benefit. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. The idea is that in bhakti and spiritual life, we're not actually creating a process for ourselves. It's already been given. And that's actually an act of great mercy from the great souls. Could I have a 10th canto part 1? There's another analogy given by the demigods in their prayers in Canto 10, Chapter 2. And there it's described that, thank you. Let's find the verse. This is Canto 10. This is the beginning of Krishna's appearance. The demigods know that he's coming. So they're praying to the Lord in the womb of Devaki. He's actually unborn, but they know who he is and what's going to happen. So they're talking about his appearance, and they talk about this way in which the devotees follow him and they leave a path for those who come afterwards. Which is exactly what today's verse is about. It's about the Acaryas and about the path they leave for us. Oh, I missed it. And these books are transcendentally tricky. I mean, I could just paraphrase the verse, but it's nice to read it. It's not appearing to me. So Krishna wants me to.
Is it?
It's fine. It's okay. So they say that when the devotees, when the great acharyas take to the process of devotional service, they help to make it practical and relevant for the persons in their age and place. And it's like crossing the ocean of material existence. You know, they give that analogy, that's classic analogy of crossing an ocean. They cross in the boat that is the process and the method, but when they cross over to the other side, they leave the boat somehow back magically and send the same shore, the same bank, so everyone else can cross over it. And the demigods describe that just by approaching that ocean, approaching that boat to cross, the ocean shrinks down because the Lord is so merciful to his devotees that when somebody takes very seriously to devotional service and thinks very carefully of how to present bhakti for others, and they follow Shastra and they follow time, place, and circumstance, they actually exemplify bhakti for others, they attract the Lord's mercy, who says, okay, so you're following this devotee, so then you're very dear to me. So the process becomes very easy. So someone like that would be Srila Prabhupada, you know, who is taking the timeless wisdom of bhakti and making it relevant in every continent of the world now, and in so many languages. And the hyper modern, 21st century lifestyle, all the practices that he gave us are still very relevant and essential. And he had the vision to say, okay, this can go, this needs to stay, and this is how a devotee should understand things. And by following a devotee like that, you attract the Lord's mercy. So that which is an ocean of material existence just shrinks down. The demigod stage shrinks down to the size of the water contained within the hoof print of a calf, about that much water. Can you drown in that much water? Not really. No. You can't even get your nose in there. You just step over it. It's so easy. It's easy as anything. Why? Because you approach the system that the Acaryas gave. And this verse is saying that all the great sages rendered service to the personality of Godhead. Whoever follows such great authorities is also eligible for liberation from the material world. It's the power of following. And contrast that with the conditioned idea under the mode of passion, especially, is that like, I've created something very novel. It's the Shamir Press method. It's a trademark. We're franchising. And if you want to learn from me, come to my workshop, my class. I have a PhD in this. I have published. Which publishing and having like being a researcher or whatever means doing something distinct. You actually have to go out of your way to do something distinct, even though everyone knows. You have to stand on the shoulders of giants. Even in the empirical sciences, you have to actually build on whatever's been done before by someone else. But everyone creates this illusion of like, yes, I've done the best thing. I have supplanted the previous ideas with the current best idea, and no one on the planet has a better idea than this right now. So we should all listen to me, right? And that's a mode of passion idea. That's not how spiritual life works. And if we approach it that way, then it becomes broken, actually, because we'll throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's always things that have to change according to time, place, and circumstance. That's necessary, actually. If you don't ever change anything, then you get the opposite problem. So there was a story one time. Somebody was a student into their guru, and they were learning how to do a sacrifice, fire sacrifice or whatever spiritual practice was relevant at that time and place. And the guru kept trying to light the fire, and this cat kept coming in the room. And the cat was like doing cat things, playing with yarn, jumping in the fire sacrifice before it was lit, and it was making all kinds of trouble. And the guru said, "Take it out." And they kept taking it out, and it kept coming back in. And he kept saying, "This I can't go on with the sacrifice with this like this." And he got a basket and put the cat underneath the basket and put the basket on top. And now the cat couldn't get out. And they said, "Now we can proceed." And so this student learned the craft from his teacher. And when he became a master himself, he made sure that all of his fire sacrifices began with a cat inside of a basket. Because without a cat in the basket, you cannot have a fire sacrifice. So this is an example of not changing something because of stubbornness and because of not understanding its purpose. The cat was getting in the way of the sacrifice. Maybe it was unclean, or it was going to play with the paraphernalia, or it was distracting. Whatever the logic is, there's some logic. And if we don't understand that logic, then we can take it at surface level. And that is ritual. The difference between ritual and practice is not knowing the role of the details, the place, the time, the mantra, the clothing, the orientation, the direction you're facing. All these things are oriented in Shastra, and they all have reasons. And if we understand the reasons and what purpose those reasons serve, then if we're actually empowered and very serious and have been following an acharya who is himself very serious, we can see which one is essential and which one can be modified, right? Which one is subordinate to other principles. So the really good news is that we don't have to do that work ourselves. It's something we can become empowered to do over years of study and practice if one wants to. It's not actually necessary. No one has to become able to understand all the details of Shastra. But what you really have to do is find someone else who has. So Srila Prabhupada is an example of that. The more I read Srila Prabhupada's books, it's been like 15 years now, the more I realize how much he's drawing from other Shastra, how much he's drawing from this Acharya's commentary, that Acharya's commentary, and the very special little places where it's like, oh, that's actually Srila Prabhupada's very specific realization coming from his own heart, That's not found anywhere else. It's not even found in the Sanskrit of the verse. It's actually just like his own special realization for this time and place. And when you follow someone like that, the process becomes very easy because they've actually oriented themselves very carefully. And so the ocean of material existence becomes smaller. It becomes easier because you attract the mercy of Krishna by even approaching such a person. It's like, oh, you're following this devotee. That devotee is very dear to me, so I'll make it easy for you.
Mm.
So, we see like in Krishna's pastimes in Canto 10, when Damodar, little baby Krishna, who's tied up by his mother, knocks down the twin Arjuna trees, he does so because he knows that there's two persons in there, but specifically he does it because Narada Muni said he would. Narada Muni gave a blessing curse to Nalakuvara and Manigriva. Oh, you're so intoxicated by wealth and privilege and prestige and position. You walk around like animals, okay? Well, you can live like trees then, because you're taking your whole existence for granted. And it sounds like a very vindictive kind of thing, but really he was saying, you can do that, but Krishna's going to come and give you his darshan. And Krishna specifically thinks when he sees those trees, the Acaryas describe, I actually couldn't care less one way or the other about these two living entities, specifically to give them my time. But Narada Muni said I should, and I will do it for him.
Mm.
You know, for them, they didn't want him. They didn't want Krishna. They didn't earn him. But as far as Krishna is concerned, Narada Muni said it's going to happen. So then I'll make it happen.
Mm.
Why? For Narada. And we see that many times in the Bhagavatam. To fulfill this desire of a devotee, Krishna acts in that way. To fulfill that devotee, he acts in this way. Like when Nrsimhadev appears, he fulfills Prahlad Maharaj's desire. He fulfills one of his devotees in Vaikuntha's desire, who wanted to come as a demon. He comes as Hiranyakashipu, just to have a sporting fight and give Krishna pleasure by fighting. He satisfies him. He satisfies Brahma, because he makes all of Brahma's benedictions true. He doesn't just break all those benedictions. Brahma said, "You can't. Guess what, Hiranyakashipu? You can't die outside. Can't die inside. Can't die in the day. Can't die in the night. Can't die killed by a human or a non-human. Can't die
Land or water.
land or water. Or in the air." So what did he do? He appeared at the stroke of between day and night. He killed them between the inside and the outside. He appeared as a half lion, half man, and he killed them in his lap.
Mm-hmm.
All that to please Brahma, to make Brahma's words true. Why? Because he loves him, because he's his devotee. He's a very advanced devotee. So he noticed what he said and he made his words real and true.
Mm.
So this is Krishna's nature of loyalty and love for his devotees. And if you want to get in with him, it's really helpful to follow this process. Love me, love my dog, right? If you want to see the president, if you want to see a very important person, you can't just walk in. But if they're out walking their dog and you praise the dog and you feed the dog and you give it attention, then they'll notice you and they'll care about you because that dog is dear to them. And someone can say, well, that's just a dog. No, it's not. It's someone who's actually surrendered to the supreme person in the situation. That means they're your end.
Mm.
That's bhakti. Bhakti is a personal science. It's a science of actually developing appreciation for the supreme by learning to develop his appreciation for his devotees. And the more we can do that, the more we attract his attention. Because the spiritual world is a place of cooperation. It's not a place for, material free thinkers. Free thinking in the material context means I actually deep down, way deep, where I don't want to look, where I don't want to admit, I actually believe I am the most important person and everyone else should follow me. I actually believe that. And I want to live my life in that way. And that's why I'm a free thinker. That's why I'm empowered to act as a free thinker. I just want to be, on my own terms, a little God. Is that too much to ask, everyone? Really? Can you just please go along with my idea? It's pretty reasonable. And of course, it's insane. It's actually insane. It doesn't work. And it's not healthy. And it's not even pleasing to oneself. It's a deranged condition. As much as if you walked into a sanitarium and someone, grabbed you by the cuff of your shirt and said, I'm Napoleon. If you really went along with that, does it help? Does it really do good for them? I mean, maybe temporarily so they can take their medicine. But at the end of the day, no, it doesn't. So Krishna knows that. And we should know that too. And the humility of following somebody is really what this verse is talking about. These authorities, they have worshipped the Supreme. So first of all, that's a great indication. It's okay, in this general direction toward God, not in the world. Then where did the world come from? That person.
Mm.
And then the process itself, which is ultimately given by Lord Chaitanya, is given by Krishna himself. Prabhupada says in the purport that the rules of religion are given by the Lord himself. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. It's a reference to the sixth canto, where, sorry, Yamaraj, who's one of the authorities mentioned here, Yamaraj actually says that I don't make up the rules of religion. They come from the Supreme Person. And the followers of Yamaraj, the context here is that the followers of Yamaraj, they actually arrested somebody who was very sinful. And they were going to take him to the next destination for some suffering, but they were forbidden. They couldn't actually do that. And they were forbidden by these very celestial beings, actually followers of the Lord Vishnudutas, it's described, that they had no experience with, and they couldn't actually understand why they were being forbidden to do this. And they thought that their boss, Yamaraj, was the supreme boss, because his job is to make sure that people get whatever suffering they need to go into their next life. And he absolutely cannot be denied. But this time he was. So his followers were really confused because they thought that they were following the supreme authority. And they went to him and said, why is it that we were forbidden? What happened here? And Yamaraj said, I don't make up the rules of Dharma. The Lord makes up the rules of Dharma. And in Canto 6, Chapter 2, he says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. And because of that, there's a purpose to what we're doing here. It's not independent. So the purpose of the material world and the purpose of the suffering that Yamaraj has to put people into is to create specific cosmic sensitivity training so that every living entity can learn whatever the lessons they need to learn. But this living entity actually chanted the Lord's name, so they're actually exempt. They've actually got special benediction because they've performed bhakti. So they don't get that specific reaction. And so his followers, who were just blindly following him, had to learn a little bit about what the purpose of their activities was. Otherwise, anybody in any position of authority can very easily become falsely independent. We can see if like a police officer thinks that their job is the most important thing, that whatever they do, then, or a teacher or a politician or a parent or anything else, then for them, the power follows the authority, right? And that because they're in a position, therefore they're right. Instead of like, I'm in this position because of higher principles. So we have to know what those higher principles are. And we have to know that by following the authorities. Prabhupada mentions the Mahajanas, the same section in the sixth canto. Yamaraj lists 12 different Mahajanas. It's not an exhaustive list. There are other Mahajanas. Maybe we'll do the Sanskrit for the verse where he lists them. Kumara, Kapilo, Shambhu. No, that's not the order. Kumara, the four Kumaras, Kapila Lord Shiva, Brahma, Bhishma Dev, Yamaraj himself. Yeah, there's like a short list there. And the idea is that we want to actually follow somebody who's understood the essence of Dharma, who can put the principles into context, so that we don't do the cat in the hat thing and blindly just accept everything. And also so we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We don't just like, in the name of modernizing, well, let's make this Krishna consciousness movement more appealing by like, let's not talk about Krishna. Let's just talk about like the Lord. Like, well, you just erased his personality. You just erased his form and his name. That's an essential thing. You can't do that without changing the essence of the thing. There's another purport about this in the first canto where Prabhupada talks about this dynamic. It's chapter 4, verse 1. 141. The purport, Srila Prabhupada says, personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous Acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous Acharya and, at the same time, He must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner. This next sentence is in italics. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization, right? So if one wants to function in this way, we can see the amount of care it takes. The first thing you have to do is follow very carefully. The second thing you have to do is do it for a long time. And you have to read all of Srila Prabhupada's books. It's like mandatory that he's put himself into these books, especially Bhagavad Gita, 12 Cantos of Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, and Krishna book, and Ishopanishad. You have to read those. If you actually want to function in a way where you can adjust to time, place, and circumstance, you have to do that. And if that's not your calling, at least follow somebody who has done that. And that's enough to be completely safe. And to make the process practical and very easy. Om Tat Sat. So let's take any reflections, comments, questions while I learn for one. Look for one of the two verses that I was unable to find earlier. They're so elusive. What did you hear?
I love the way you defined bhakti this morning. There's so many ways bhakti is ... There's so many ways that we can define it, and that it has been defined. And you said bhakti is a personal science of developing a relationship with the Supreme by developing a relationship with his devotees. And just like that, the importance of the humility to follow someone, the humility to surrender, to not have to be, to not try to play God, like you were speaking of. And how there's this very individual part of our practice in our sadhana, and then there's the essential nature of like being in association with devotees and not trying to do it meaning practice bhakti in our own little funnel. It
doesn't actually work the same way.
There's a ceiling to that.
There is, and it may not seem that way because it's very easy to look at the process given by Lord Chaitanya and say, well, I'm reading the books, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, I'm following the regulated principles, I'm rising early, I'm even worshiping a deity, I'm doing all these things, so therefore I'm practicing bhakti. But there's a way in which you don't get challenged without other devotees. You don't get, you have to have more than one rock in a rock tumbler in order for them to get smooth. It's actually a great austerity to cooperate. It's not easy to do. Otherwise, you could be like, well, I know the real thing and I'll just figure it out on my own. Those people over there, we find a lot of critics in spiritual life. There's a lot to criticize in the material world, especially in the age of color. There's always a fault. Krishna says every fire has a fault, just like every fire has smoke, just like every endeavor has a fault. So if you want to be the kind of person that like, oh, this is a fault and that's a fault, it's very easy to like paint yourself in a corner where I'm the only person who has real bhakti. Everyone else is out to lunch. Maybe somebody like Prabhupada who's not on the planet anymore is a real devotee, but no one else is a real devotee. They're all, and it's just a trap. There has to be a society. Prabhupada says if there's somebody considers that they can practice bhakti without the association of other devotees, that is a great hallucination. Because the process won't act. They put themselves in a position where the process cannot act completely on them. It's actually a trap of the ego because it's difficult to get along with other people. It's challenging to get to find different personalities and work through differences and find the essential truth and learn hard things about yourself and have to give hard truths to other people is very difficult to do. It's actually a supreme austerity to cooperate. And yet if you do that for the sake of practicing bhakti more deeply and helping others to do the same, it's really, really pleasing to Krishna. And I found the verse I was looking for. 10:2:30. The demigod said, O lotus-eyed Lord, by concentrating one's meditation on your lotus feet, which are the reservoir of all existence, and by accepting those lotus feet as the boat by which to cross the ocean of nescience, nescience means ignorance, one follows in the footsteps of Mahajanas, great saints, sages, and devotees. By this simple process, one can cross the ocean of nescience as easily as one steps over the hoofprint of a calf. The next verse says, O Lord, who resemble the shining sun, you are always ready to fulfill the desire of your devotee, and therefore you are known as a desire tree, Vancha Kalpataru. When Acaryas completely take shelter under your lotus feet, in order to cross the fierce ocean of nescience. They leave behind on earth the method by which they cross. And because you are very merciful to your other devotees, you accept this method to help them. 10 to 30 and 31.
Can you say the Sanskrit?
Sure. 10 to 30. Tvayam Vujaksha Kila Satvatami Samadhana Veshita Chetasake Tvatpada Potena Mahatkritena Kurvanti Go Vatsapadam Pabaptim. 31. Svayam Samuttirya Sudastarang Yumang Pavarnavam Pima Madhaprasahrida Vatpadam Puranav Matrate Vitayata Sadanugraho Pavan. And in the purport to 10 to 30, Prabhupada quotes the verse from the 6th canto I was looking for, where Yamaraj lists the 12 Mahajanas. Swayambhur, Narada, Shampu, Kumara, Kapilu, Manu, Prahlada, Janako, Bhishmo, Balir, Vyasakir, Vyam. Brahma, Narada, Shiva, the 4 Kumaras are counted as one. Kapila Dev, Manu, specifically Swayambhuva Manu, because that's the context. Manu's a position, but that particular Manu was the Manu when Yamaraj said it. Prahlad Maharaj, Janaka is the father of Lord Princess Sita. He was a great devotee. Janaka Maharaj, Bhishma Dev, Bali, Vyasaki, the son of Vyasadeva, Shukadev Goswami, and Vyam, my own humble self, he says. Yamaraj himself is an acharya. There are other acharyas on the list, like, you can think of Lakshmi Devi. She has a whole sampradaya following her. We have like Srila Prabhupada, we have Madhvacharya, we have like, Ramanuja Acharya. You can make a case for even Shankaracharya as an acharya. He's an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Like, it's not an exhaustive list, but we can see these are very special persons. And you gotta have a boss. You gotta follow somebody.
Right.
So pick a good one and go. And like that. More reflections? We're slowly building up a Govardhan Hill over here.
Bhagavatam.
What did you hear?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Good morning. Hare Krishna. So I definitely missed something. Was the cat under the basket an acceptable solution or not an acceptable solution? I missed that part.
To the cat, like getting in the way of the sacrifice. But the joke is the follower, the student, because he thought, well, that's how it has to be. He wouldn't even start a sacrifice until he found a cat, brought it in, and put it under a basket. And that's technically okay, but it's useless ritual because the cat was a problem. It was getting in the way. And he kept trying to take the cat out and he wouldn't listen, so it wouldn't follow. So it had to be restrained. And thinking that the cat is then necessary is like an example of ritualism. And there's like hundreds of examples of that, like literally hundreds. You can find any religion, any spiritual practice in the world, and ask people, why do you do this? And 9 out of 10 people won't have a clue. They will not know why they're doing what they're doing. The 10th person may have a clue, and 1 out of 100 can actually give you like a correct, logical explanation that links to scripture and links to spiritual authority. It also links to practicality, right? Like, well, why don't you want a cat? Well, because they're getting in the way. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, actually, there's a science of the modes of nature, and it turns out that, if you have a cat touch things, it's gonna put it into a lower mode of nature. Why? Well, I mean, look at how a cat behaves. It eats certain things, and it turns out that meat is less clean than non-meat, and there's a science to that. And so, we love cats and everything, but they can't be in the middle of a fire yoga. It doesn't work. So there's a science to that, and not everybody has to know all the details, but somebody has to, and somebody has to be in your Rolodex. Somebody has to be on reference, on call, so you can actually ask, well, why? And if you don't have that person, then it's going to become either accepted blindly or rejected blindly as a detail. And one way or another, that's a problem. There has to be at least some specialist, just like there has to be some professor somewhere who does research, and their life is like in the academy, and they're kind of a bookworm, and they're maybe a little bit like eye in the sky and a little bit like geeky and a little bit like out of touch, but their job is to actually know the details. And if you aren't that person, that's okay. You have to know that person. You have to be like at least 6 degrees of separation from that person.
I want to be that person so badly.
Great.
But I was
Here's-
also really
Here's the path right here.
got my own stack. I'm not reading. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I was reading too, you know, that the highest form of whatever is serving the spiritual master, right? Something to that effect. And you know, I'm like, why? Why is like serving the guru like the most, you know, or and it really is like you have to support and serve and obey, and the people, these special you know, learned people who have like done this for years in order to gain that knowledge, I guess, and it brings you closer to Krishna in that way. And I think like in our, you know, society, it's the idea of serving anyone is like, you know, few and far between, and not taken well. And, you know, I'm going to give my life up for this and that and serve other people. And it's just, we really do get so much from the service more than if we didn't. So
Yeah, I mean, because
get
the
it.
current society is based on the idea of being, you know, it glorifies the idea of doing it your own way and figuring it out stuff, reinventing the wheel. And it's like, well, why would I want to do that when someone else has already done it better than me? Why would I want to take so much time and energy to reinvent the wheel? It's already been done. Why not have like a great teacher? And think about it. It's actually like this idea you said of like we get so much from our teachers. It's mystical, but it's also not very mystical. Like if you're giving a class on something that you're an expert in, you actually know it really well. You've invested years of time and practice into doing it well. And other people are like, we want you to give a TED talk. And someone shows up and they're in the front row and they're like leaning in. They're asking questions and they're taking notes and they really want to know, you know? And they give you like an apple before the class and they like give you a glass of water and they're kind and attentive and they're there. Like how much more interested are you in helping them get to where you are, your level of mastery, than the person who's in the back and like on their phone and you know, and they're like interrupting you like, I know that. Yeah, actually I know that. And you know, it's very practical. It's really practical. One person attracts your mercy and the other person doesn't. So if we're trying to be of service and we're trying to receive and we're humble enough to recognize, yeah, this is a master. This person knows way more than me. I'm here to receive that. Then that attitude becomes very it becomes noticeable and it attracts the mercy. And they give blessings. And because this is a spiritual parampara, it's not just the blessings of like, you know, you can ask me questions and I have after class hours and you can come in and I'll give you personal attention and care. And, you know, there's actually a mystical way in which the devotee will think like, this person should advance. They're ready. I want Krishna, please help them to receive what they need, whether it's detachment from matter, higher knowledge, right association, you know, let them overcome this addiction they're going, whatever it is, they pray for you. They ask Krishna to intercede for you. They give blessings explicitly and implicitly. And whether we know it or not, we're actually operating on that. That's how we're actually moving, is because of blessings. So it's like that. And by the way, you can read all these books. It's entirely doable. It may not seem that way. You just got to do a little bit every day. I'll give you my blessings because I was empowered to do it by someone who's doing it. You don't even have to be a monk. I started doing it before I was a monk. You just gotta decide it's important to you and carve out some time and read for a few minutes every day. If you read 8 pages a day, you can read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in 5 years. That's doable. 41 pages a day will get you the Bhagavatam in 1 year. Just saying.
Does that include purport?
Yes.
Yeah, like physical page. This page has this much text. You can skip that. You can skip that if you want.
It really is doable.
It's very doable.
And you have a nice new shelf for your bongo tom set, Samantha.
That's true. They're not just for display. I remember Keshava Swami.
Yeah.
He came to a home program in New Jersey, and he's so tall. First of all, I didn't realize that, but that was not my only takeaway. He was saying something about, we get these Bhagavatams through the thing, and the wonderful, what's it called, where they mail the books, and he said, but I tell people, you can also take off the wrapper. He's like, you can also read them. And the way he said it was like, just, so true. I think not only one, do they seem just so beautiful and not to be touched, but they really are books and they're meant to be read. And they contain everything, right? Almost everything.
Yeah.
They absolutely are meant to be read. That's actually a really high kind of service. Because it's like Srila Prabhupada restricted himself to 2.5 hours of sleep so he could write these books. And you'll attract his mercy by even trying to read them. We can't do what Srila Prabhupada did, but we can try to appreciate his contribution by, like, okay, well, if I can't write, I'll try to read at his, even reading at the rate he wrote is too much, but just trying to follow, you get so much mercy from that. They're incredibly deep and relevant, and they will deepen your relationship with Krishna. They're it's one of the 5 most important angas of bhakti is the Shastra, especially Bhagavatam and the bhakti related Shastra. And with the purports of Prabhupada, they become accessible. More reflections or questions?
Yeah. I mean, association is critical, but also like understanding that there are brahmanas in this movement, people that are knowledgeable, that have just like yourself, Shami Pras, and finding those people for your source of knowledge. It's like the daily plug-in or weekly plug-in to remind the direction where to go. Because if we just go around and just bang around and do what we need to do or want to do, we do come off the path. It's to be able to find someone that is learned, that is more advanced than you, to help guide and give direction and develop and grow. And I think that was one of the big takeaways, is that you need to find someone that obviously follows the practice correctly, but also just helps find the connections for you through Shastra. And it's our duty, and I think it's a duty that's kind of lost in society these days, is to serve the brahmanas, because they are the sacred holders and they keep us online and keep everything. And they would, if in a perfect society, would be the head of the society. So,
and doing that is associating with devotees, listening to the lectures by those that are really learned and have been serving this Prabhupada's movement. That is associating too, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's the service aspect too, and service is like the big part too. Serving everyone in being an association, and that's the thing I can attest. It's very, very difficult if I don't have enough association with the buddies.
Thank you.
Yeah. Try.
Yeah, I'll just say I appreciated your talk about like the power of following, and there's like a level of discernment we have to apply to that for sure. When we talk about how like knowledge is passed down, making sure it's not diluted and translated incorrectly, and the idea that like knowledge is never like created, it's just translated from the original source.
Yeah.
And I think a lot about modern technology, right? In 2025, it's like, right, all these large language models and AI, they're just derivatives, right? It's like they're only as good as they understand the input, right? It's like, and it's like they will never create anything new. They will just translate it and
their databases.
Yeah, they're just regurgitating it in a slightly different way to make it potentially more exciting or interesting to us, but it's not anything new. There will be never a new thought that comes out of a large language model. it just might be novel to us, but it's not new.
Hmm.
In a sense, but it's like I just think about it like we this idea of passing down knowledge, like making sure that we're tuned into as pure of a source as we can possibly be, as pure of a
Mm.
unadulterated and um, obviously that it's going to be translated beautifully in the modern way that we can understand it, but they're also reminded that hey, there is this like ultimate source, there is this
Yeah.
ultimate truth.
Mm.
Yeah, and the evidence is that, you know, somebody who follows that can actually answer why. Well, why does this practice work? Because they've experienced it for themselves, and also they've applied their own spiritual intelligence to the matter.
Yeah.
A model, an AI model or a machine can, or someone who functions at a low level of practice or low level of consideration of consciousness cannot themselves either ask the question why or answer it. Well, why do we chant Hare Krishna? Oh, because it's a good idea. Why is it a good idea? Why this mantra?
Yeah.
There are answers to those questions. Like chapter 4, verse 34, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says you should approach a self-realized soul and inquire humbly from them and do service.
Mhm.
And the idea is that the word he uses pariprashna, and it means to ask questions, but it means pari as a prefix means to ask, like ask around. Pari is like where we get like perimeter, around. Pari means like to ask all the way around, and to like really get around something and be thorough. You can be really thorough and threadbare in your questions with a self-realized soul, and they can actually deal with them and handle them and answer them. Because they've thought very carefully, you know, and received knowledge about why, and they can also provide references. So if you ask them like, why the Maha Mantra? Oh, well, the Kali Santarana Upanishad says the Maha Mantra, and that's like a Vedic text, and here's what the words mean, and here's the activity, here's what a mantra is, all that they can tell you. It's really easy for them.
Mhm.
But otherwise, it's like, oh well, that's just what everyone else does. I don't want to like, you know, get in trouble here doing something else, what everyone else does. And a machine can't perform that logic, cannot perform that analysis because they're not practicing, and unless someone has actually written down their realizations for that machine to like farm as content, they can't actually represent it. There's always something that's within the heart and mind of a human being that cannot be present anywhere else.
Right.
Even in a book. Prabhupada says that too. If you just read the books and you don't actually inquire from devotees, you won't even really understand properly either.
Mhm.
You will understand a lot.
I think that's the most beautiful part about this practice is collaboration, ask questions, and learn from each other. You know, we just work together.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. For lack of a better word.
It is. It's great. Leanne.
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna. So I keep reflecting on the ocean, how you're talking about how the ocean gets smaller as, we surrender to teacher, to an Acharya. And I keep thinking also how Shastra has carried me through so much through the teachings and all the Shastra. And then also just reflecting on it makes me think about like how the process was for all of the great acharyas and the teachers, even more like what they experienced, and just wanting to hear from them about all of that. Sometimes I just wonder. So yeah, with Prabhupada and how it all was, because I know what we're experiencing, and then I can only imagine what they've experienced, and from what their experiences are, then they can hand things down to us and bring us closer too. So
Absolutely. One great follower of Srila Prabhupada put it this way, that, you know, we very rightly glorify Srila Prabhupada and talk about him and hear from him in his Acharya Leela, like when he was this Paramahamsa, amazing devotee traveling the world, giving us, you know, the Bhagavatam and that. But he also was a young man who met a spiritual master for the first time and was torn between following him and like all of his material attachments. You know, he was trying to support Gandhi's movement and this and that. Think of like social activism today. Like if you could think about like, well, I kind of want to be a social activist, but I'm also just feeling like I should dive deep into the spiritual practice. He had to balance his wife and kids and making money and working, and he had to find time for a spiritual practice. And if you want to compare yourself, don't compare yourself to the Prabhupada of 1970s, whatever. Like, what did Prabhupada do when he was a young man? What was his experiences? What was it like for him? And those are much more relatable for us at our level, because we are working with the material energy. We have spouses and kids and money and jobs and attachments and political ideas and ideology and, you know, this and that. And, you know, Prabhupada also navigated that as Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. His life is very interesting. And as our living gurus can attest that their life is very interesting. And there's a lot of really important stuff to hear about. That's not just like, oh, Krishna's God and here's the practice. It's like also, well, here's what it's like to follow the practice as a devotee in your context, in your language. And, you know, here's what it was like for me dealing with your thing, and maybe that can help you. And really, it does. It does.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. All right, we heard from everyone, except for all the YouTube crowd. So please post on some reflections on YouTube. Purify that space. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. All right. Have a great day, everyone.